Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to Teen Talk Conversations. My name is Nat Mayotte. I am the owner of the Teen Talk program and a public speaking coach. Before we even hop in, I want to make sure that if you have not liked the page yet, please go ahead and do that and subscribe to the channel so you'll be alerted to when the next piece of content comes out. So today I am meeting with Maria. Maria and I met just recently and right away became aligned because we have a lot of things in common. Maria is heading a summit that will bring parents and educators together to discuss how we can support our students. We want to share about that story today and what that means. So, Maria, welcome to the show.
Thank you for inviting me.
And Maria, before we get started, can you just tell everybody a little bit about yourself, maybe in 30 seconds, who are you, what do you do, and what is important to you?
So my name is Maria Teresa Foster Luengo, and I have two passports, one from Canada and one from Mexico. I am a person who has spent a lot of time in social justice and has had a thread of social justice weaving throughout my whole life. What I'm really committed to ultimately is that kids are happy, safe, and fully expressed on the planet, that they're actually seen and heard for who they are. And how I do that is in my work in public education. I've been working in public education from Jesus for approximately over 30 years. And I started
Wow.
off as a high school teacher. I then went in to become a high school counselor, and now I'm working as an elementary school teacher. And one of the things that I saw was missing for parents, caregivers, and educators was relationships between each other. And I really noticed that with both of those two groups, there's a lack of work-life balance. So I created a business called Phoenix Inspired Coaching, where I coach parents and caregivers and educators to profoundly transform the way they relate to themselves, they relate to their lives, the way they relate to each other, and ultimately the way they relate to the kids that they raise and teach.
I love that. And I think that all of those things they weave together without even it's a seamless weave that we don't see, but is necessary that there be some cohesiveness. And I mean, I know as a parent, and maybe sometimes it's because I'm an older parent that I see things a little bit differently. There's no rose colored glasses, as they say. I don't take anything for granted because I'm also a teacher. So I'm in the classrooms and I see what goes on in the classroom. And I often wonder, how is this happening? Or where are the parents? How come they don't know this? Well, I
Yes.
think that it's because as parents, we're super busy and we don't take the time and we're relying on the school to do its job, which is educating. But I don't think teachers are supposed to take on all these additional roles that they have now. Would that be accurate?
Yes, that would be accurate. And what you don't know about those two groups is they both have a lack of work-life balance, and they
Yeah.
both are burning the candle at both ends. And they both are often in the world of like burning out as a parent or a caregiver or an educator, or they're overwhelmed by the experience of parenting. They're overwhelmed by the experience of teaching. And what I'm out to transform is I want to go from them surviving the experience to thriving in the experience.
Mm,
And that is not the experience that many adults are having in their roles.
it is, and it is hard. And I only have one. I can't imagine anyone that has more than one child and having to thrive. That can be challenging. So before we dive into what the summit's going to be about, what are maybe some things that you help parents deal with when it comes to that work-life balance?
Oh boy. Oh, what is it that I don't deal with? That's the better question. So look,
Okay.
we live in a world in which we want the best for ourselves and the best for our children. And how
Mhm.
that shows up with people is working hours that might not work for them and having a work life balance, working in a job that doesn't work for them and having a work life balance. Um, what I find, especially with people on the female end of the spectrum, is that we are socialized to give and give and give at the expense of our own health. And if we're not healthy and happy, we're not able to be fully present with our kids. And what kids want is they don't want perfect parents, they don't want perfect educators.
No.
What they want are present ones. And that is what's missing in how people are being with each other, is actually being fully present. What I'm seeing, what I'm hearing is that people sit down for dinner and everybody's on an iPad or a cell phone. And this happens in restaurants, this happens at home.
Yeah.
And I look at that and I think, wow, what's missing there is that they don't get an opportunity to find out how the day went, what happened in school. They don't get the opportunity to practice their social skills. And so, what I see happening for the future is the next generation is going to be a group of people that knows how to do this, knows how to text.
Yeah.
However, that is not actually authentic communication. Communication happens with a human and another human speaking to each other, not emailing, not texting, not
Yeah.
Instagramming each other, not connecting through LinkedIn. It's actually the human to human contact that's missing. And so, I support adults like parents, like
Yeah.
educators who are going through major transitions in their lives, like divorces, separation. Maybe they're dealing with someone who's got a terminal illness. Maybe they have a terminal illness. I'm dealing with parents who have kids who have learning challenges and how they work with the school system to support their kids. And often, what ends up happening is that there's a lot of anxiety over there with the parent because they'll have more than one kid in the school system, and one of them doesn't have a learning challenge, the other one does. And they can see at times a discrepancy at the level of the support that one kid is getting and not getting. And then they need to go advocate for that. So I see parents and teachers being very much in the same boat, but they don't often see that they also have private lives outside of their jobs. And they're also going through divorces and separations and illnesses and
Yeah.
COVID and kids with learning challenges. Many parents are teachers, many teachers are parents. And when you combine those two roles together, that's where the heart of my work lies, because those two groups are really up against something, against the demands of like what it means to be that parent that's perfect, where you're baking cupcakes at 4 o'clock in the morning because you know that Susie baked cupcakes and brought them to the class. And if you buy them from a store, you will be shunned by the other parents because you're not doing your best. And so
Yeah.
I tell parents, forget about baking cupcakes at 4 a.m. in the morning. If that's going to have an impact on your sleep and your ability to be your best version of yourself the next day, go buy the cupcakes. I have no problem with that. And I can even send you to a place where they make designer cupcakes, which will be so amazing that no one will complain. So, on the teacher end of things, they are paid a salary to do a job. And then there's an expectation from parents and caregivers and administrators to coach volleyball, to run the chess club at lunch, to run the girls empowerment group after school. They don't get paid for any of that. And often they're working through their union break, which is the one at recess, and their lunch break, or they're doing work for the sports teams that they coach during their prep time, which is typically used to prep lessons, do the
Yeah.
photocopying, get the macaroni all set up for the gluing macaroni on a piece of paper thing. So, you know, both groups need to understand that they're both often in the world of overwhelmed and stretched. And, they want to be able to build partnerships where they acknowledge that and they're not asking people to stretch beyond what they can stretch.
So for me, what's coming up is, do you not feel at some, I mean, there's so much to unpack here, and I want to get to the summit. But part of it for me as a parent and as an educator is that there's a lot in the education system that hasn't shifted over how many years? 60, 70, 80, 90 years, that the system has not really changed. And we're just doing a wash, rinse, repeat every year. And there hasn't been a lot of opportunity to sort of look at how kids who have challenges can learn. How can we adapt to those things? I mean, there are schools that do adapt. I don't want to make a generalization, but overall, that system of education has not shifted.
Yeah, so there are some things that work and there's
Yeah.
some things that don't work. What works is that now kids with learning challenges are far more integrated into classes than they ever were before.
Yeah.
What doesn't work is that we still haven't addressed class size issues where having a classroom of 30 kids with different abilities and capabilities
Yeah.
and they're learning at grade levels doesn't quite work. It does work when you go to a private school, which in British Columbia are partially funded by the government, 30 to 50% of their operating budget, and you've got 16 kids in a class. That takes off so much stress off the teacher in terms of marking, getting assignments done, prepping the lessons,
Attention. Yeah.
even going on a field trip. So working in a private school is a distinct experience. Um, and working in the public system, what needs to happen is there needs to be improvement with the working conditions of teachers. Um,
Mm.
I've worked in schools where teachers have been injured every week by the same student. Um, and that student was, 5 to 7 years old. So
Wow.
I did a YouTube video on injured by the kids we teach, and we need to look at the increased amount of aggression and violence and injuries that teachers are experiencing, especially at the elementary school level, where they're getting kicked and spat on and bitten and injured by the students. I mean, I personally was injured by a student who grabbed my wrists and yanked on my arms. And I have, you're not going to be able to see it, but I have a bump
Mm.
here that will not go away and will stay there for the rest of my life. And I'm not able to wear a watch on that hand. And there is some pain there from time to time.
So do you think that, okay, so that's like the school side, and which brings up for me, as an educator, some of the behavior that I see in classrooms, I wonder sometimes how this entitlement that students seem to have, and how come parents are not taking responsibility for some of that. And I know that you've mentioned so many things already, and it's all like it all weaves together that parents are stressed, they're going through things, life. But at the end of the day, there has to be some accountability.
Yes. And what I'm finding with parenting is that we've gone to the other end of the spectrum where we're not responsible and taking responsibility for our children and the behavior of our children at times. I've had conversations with parents where I let them know that, your child kicked so and so at recess. The parent had a discussion with the child and said, my kid didn't do that. And I said, well, 5 adults saw your kid do that. And they still don't take responsibility.
Oh my God.
The other thing
Yeah.
that's happening is over parenting. So I will see
Mm.
kids in elementary schools, kindergarten, grade 1, grade 2, they'll come in and when they enter the classroom, they will sit on the floor, stick their feet up, expecting the teacher to take their boots off, and put their hands out, expecting the teacher to take off their jackets. Well, as an elementary school teacher, if I'm taking off the kindergarten classes' jackets, all 30 of them, that'll take me an hour. It'll take me another hour to put them on a recess, another hour to take them off. And we're over parenting kids where at a developmentally appropriate age, like age 5, it is absolutely appropriate for a child to be able to take off their boots, put them in a specific area, take off their
Yeah.
jackets, put it in a specific area, and that doesn't always happen. And yet,
Yeah.
on the other hand, I've seen incredible partnerships with parents and schools where they have revamped the entire school in conversation with all of the school staff to create accessibility for example, one student who's in a wheelchair and decide
Hmm.
how that's going to work in terms of being included into the curriculum. And this kid is 100% included in all of the curriculum.
Yeah. Yeah. So it is possible. I mean, change can happen. So I think part of the change that's happening is that on September 13th, 2025, there's an amazing summit happening. We're going to drop all the details in the description. I'm going to put the poster at the end, maybe at the beginning. We'll put it so everybody has the details. But please go ahead and tell the listeners about the summit, what you want to achieve in it, and how are they going to be able to join in?
Yeah. So one thing that I'd like to say is I've always been committed in transforming the education system from the inside out. And
Yeah.
one of the things that I saw was missing was that in my conversations with parents and caregivers and school staff, when we have those meetings together, what sometimes would come up is a request from the caregiver that the teacher do more in the classroom to support their child, the teacher getting defensive about it and saying, no, actually, this is a parenting issue and it's over there with you. And I'm sitting in the middle of both groups saying, do you know y'all belong to the same village that's raising and teaching the same child, and that there is no I in team, and
Yeah.
that could we put aside our differences and really focus on the needs of the child? Because the minute we get stuck in my opinion's right, your opinion's wrong, we lose focus of
Yeah.
the child. And so I thought, if I were to take on a game out there in the world that would make a difference in something that I believe is missing in public education, and I could like speculate on any game that I want to play, like really any game, the sky's the limit. I
Yeah.
chose the Listen, Learn, Lead Parent Teacher Summit, where we bridge the home and the classroom with love, intention, and purpose, where we will have real talk, real connections, and real actionable tools that you can start using immediately. And it's about moving from parent education programs, which only deal with parenting, or professional development teacher programs that only deal with the educators, to bringing them both together to the same table to have this important conversation about how do we build powerful, and I mean powerful partnerships between the parents and caregivers and all of the school staff to raise and teach the next generation.
I love it because I know for myself, who is going to participate in the summit, as speaking coach, obviously communication is my it's my gem, my jam. And I just created a little document probably 2 weeks ago, and I did a recording of it of things parents can do with their kids to create more conversation and more communication. And simply, these are some of the icebreaker games that I play in class that I took them and made them more like parent friendly, and things to help parents bridge that gap of communication that is not happening. Kind of what you were saying earlier. Everybody's on tech, everybody's on their phone, nobody's having those conversations. And for me, that is like in our house, yes, there's tech, yes, there's phones, yes, there's tablets, but at dinner, we sit down together. When there's a school pickup, there's key questions that are asked. What was the best part of your day? What was the worst part of your day? Those questions that allow conversation to happen and flow, because what that does, it creates a sense of trust, and your child, and I don't want to speak for all parents, but I know that in my house, my child will come to me with pretty much everything,
Mhm.
because I've created that sort of openness of trust of, I'm going to, can I talk to you about this? So, my goal is to create more opportunities for parents to communicate in a positive way, without feeling awkward, I guess, because it
Yes,
can be
and
awkward
and
at times.
and you hit the nail on the head. Look, it starts with trust, and that's the first thing we're going to address in the conference. We've got three great speakers, yourself, Leah, and George Watson, and we're going to be addressing how to what is the state of our relationships right now, and what
Hmm.
is our goal in regards to where it is that we want to get to. And it does starts with trust, it does start with communication, and it does start with partnering up to raise resilient, healthy, happy kids. And I'm so excited as to what's going to come out of that conference. It is within the first 2 weeks of our school year. So it's the perfect time to
Yeah.
start building these relationships with the teachers and aligning on how are we going to communicate? How often are we going to communicate? And let's get really clear on what's your responsibilities and what's my responsibilities so that we respect each other's boundaries. Like, you know, as a parent, you're not going to tell a teacher how to teach because that's not going to work. However, you can share with the teacher that your child's an auditory learner or a visual learner, or
Yeah.
needs a fidget on the desk to self-regulate. Like those are great tips to give to the teacher. Um, I find that sometimes what happens in my work is that I find out that there's been, for example, a change in the family. Either they've moved, there's been a death in the family, they haven't informed the school, and then it shows up in the behavior of the child. And then I find out what's really going on. And I would have preferred a heads up in my job as a counselor as to what was going on. And parents have the right to keep everything confidential if they so choose.
Oh,
So,
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think that's what's missing. I know that for myself, parents that I who their children are in my class where we're living right now, I like to give them the feedback. I like to say to them, so and so is doing so great. They're participating. They're doing the thing, but also give the feedback of where we can improve.
mhm,
And I would say 9.5 out of 10 times the parent is grateful for that information because they want to know what's going on.
mhm.
Now, I know that people are overwhelmed, and I know that they can't always do it. And I have my own opinions on a few things, but I think at the end of the day, if my child wasn't behaving or something was happening, I would want to know so
Mhm.
I could take responsibility as the parent and as the teacher to give that information to the parents so that they can manage it or give them the tools to manage. Sometimes parents just don't have the tools. They just don't know
Yes.
how.
Yes, and it's interesting you should say that because sometimes when we see kids sleeping in class every day and I have a chat with them and I find out it's because they're playing video games all night, I will have a chat with the parents and they just need somebody outside of the family to say, take the technology away at bedtime. Don't leave a desktop in the room without a password. Turn off your internet. Like there's different ways of managing access to technology. I point out that the number one addiction that is showing up with kids, which we don't really address because we don't have people who specialize through Vancouver Coastal Health, for example, to address this, are the technology addictions. We talk about
Mhm.
the impact of the blue screen on the developing brain. We talk about the disruption to sleep, which is really important when kids want to be resilient in school the next day and be open to learning. And they just need a parent, they just need somebody outside to let them know what the boundaries are. I actually worked with a parent, I kid you not, Nat, who slept in the living room. So they would wake up when their child tried to walk over them to get to the desktop that was on the desk. And I said to the dad, I wonder if we could like think of anything else you could do besides sleeping on the floor because the person had a bad back. And after, half an hour of conversation, we came up with passwords, turning off the internet, removing the keyboard. Like there's so many ways that you can do the same thing, get the same results, but not be sleeping on the floor. So it's
Yeah.
often just getting a different perspective. And, that's what's going to be presented at the summit is three different perspectives. After each speaker, we're going to have breakout rooms because we're going
Yeah.
to be looking at questions that really go into the in-depth topic that was just presented by
Yeah.
the speaker. And we're going to have these cozy little groups where people are going to be able to have really juicy conversations that are moderated by a facilitator in regards to our points of view on the topic. And then how do we come together to work together?
I love it. I love it so much. Okay, so we're gonna drop all the info into the description to make sure that everybody can go and find the info, put it in their calendar, save the date, and register as well. Any last minute words of wisdom you'd like to share with everybody?
Yes, come and be part of a movement. We are bringing parents, caregivers, and educators together to transform the way we relate to ourselves to ultimately make a difference for kids. So I invite you all to share this event on Saturday, September the 13th. It'll be from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. PST. And I look forward to seeing everybody at the summit.
Awesome. And you said something so important at the beginning, and I want to close the loop with it. As parents, in my opinion, adults are just big kids who also want to be seen and heard. So if we acknowledge who they are as parents, just like we acknowledge kids, they want to be seen and heard. So much can happen with that. So
Mhm.
I too hope to see you at this summit on September 13th. I'm excited to be part of it. I'm excited to support parents and teachers alike in the quest to play this game and come out victorious and make sure that we can make a difference. If you want to know more about the Teen Talk program, make sure that you click on the link in the description where you can get to know me, book a call, and we can figure out how to better communicate with your teen. Whatever you choose to do, have an incredible day, and I'll see you soon in the next episode. Thanks a lot, Maria.
Thank you.
Bye for now, everybody.